Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Remette Chameleon crossbar lock in titanium and M390. A lot going on here aesthetically. There's a couple of really cool details that I found on their website when I looked this up, and it's like I always say, I want to give credit where it's due. Nothing drives me more crazy than companies who don't provide information on blade material for the people who are willing to spend this type of money on a knife. Number one, Rockwell hardness. Remette, not only do they give it to you, if they're accurate, they're hitting this number pretty well. 60 to 62 on their M390, which is awesome. I don't have the equipment to test that, right? But they know good and well that many members in the community are able to do that. So that'd be a little bit risky to just lie about it. Number two, they offer this in a Damascus blade. And it also drives me crazy when companies are like, it's Damascus. Damascus, wow! I'm like, okay, great. Well, what's it made out of? They tell you right away it's a 10CR based Damascus blade, which is nothing ultra special, but I do appreciate them telling you. It is so rare for if it's not Damasteel and it's something below that, it's so rare for a company to just come out and say, here's what we made it out of. So, I wanted to say that right off the bat. Remette, thank you for providing that information on your website. I think that's really great. This knife is available. It comes in a few different configurations. In fact, one of the configurations is entirely lightning anno, which is this shiny looking stuff down here. I'll link it right down in the description. You guys can check it out if you want. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's entirely up to you. Thanks to Remette for providing this knife review. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Let's go ahead and measure. Overall length coming in at 7.75 inches. Blade length is coming in at 3.5 on the dot. Cutting edge is actually just shy. No, it's 3 on the dot thanks to a large forward choil. How about some size comparisons? Any custom scales you find in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and others. So up against the 80-10 and the 80-20.5. This knife feels a lot bigger than the 80-20.5, but it's actually not that much bigger. It's certainly nowhere near the same size as the 80-10. How about up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3? Definitely larger than the Para 3. Not quite as large as the PM2. And I think cutting edge wise, it's close to the PM2, a little bit more than the Para 3. Last but not least, let's put it up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue and the Hogue Deca. How's the action of this knife? This is a crossbar lock, which is, not a new thing in the knife world, but it is new for Remette. And they've done a very nice job. This is very smooth, very reliable, not sticky, and most importantly, can survive a lot. Actually, I gave that a little bit extra there. It can survive a couple of taps on the spine, which is good enough for me. Very, very easy to manipulate. I will say, though, these thumb studs, this style, right, this sort of sharp doorknob style thumb stud is fine. It works. But after 5 or 6, it starts to dig into your finger. So that's very nitpicky. You can also use this fuller if you keep your fingers off of the axis bar itself, which is kind of tricky to do. You can use that to reverse flick it, right? It's fine. Just, if you like to sit and flick your knives out like knives, plural has a V in it. Knife is singular. Knives is plural, sorry. If you like to sit and do that, flick your knives out over and over again when you're watching TV or whatever, after a little while, it'll get irritating. If you use this, as it's intended to be used, which is just get it out and deploy it and cut with it, you'll hardly notice it. But it is done very well. It feels very good. There's nothing to complain about here. Length and height, carry profile. Length and height, not length and height, thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. It's not super thick. It's very comparable to the Spyderco Para 3. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. This is not necessarily a difficult object to carry. It might feel a little heavy for some people. It just depends on what you've been carrying. A little longer. The Para 3 definitely short on the PM2. Not quite as tall as either of them. So what are we looking at for materials here? We have quite the aesthetic chaos going on. Gold and lightning. This is not Damascus, it's lightning anno, but it has been polished. And for some people who like colorful knives, right? The simple knee-jerk reaction is, that looks like a gas station knife, right? I mean, like, if you have no original thoughts in your head, then that's probably what popped in there. But for everybody who knows what they're looking at, it's just colorful titanium, right? That's been anodized in a certain way and then polished, which is cool because that's a little bit extra effort. Same thing with the backspacer. It's been polished on the outside, not on the inside, but that doesn't matter. So that's neat. And then we have gold right here, and then this is black. And then we have it looks like a glass blasted M390 blade, which is cool. I like it. It's much, it's very preferable to a simple bead blasting or media blasting. I think the glass blasting gives it a little bit more reflectivity and it looks kind of nice, right? So M390 in titanium with a milled titanium pocket clip and a milled titanium backspacer and some extra polishing there. So a little bit of extra effort. Weight. This knife comes in at 4.2 ounces for 3.5 inches of blade. Not bad, but expected, right? That's probably not going to be heavy for most people, but some people certainly. There's a little tiny bit of internal milling, so they did make an effort there. That's nice. Let's go ahead and get out my tools for a hardware check. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down there in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel, as well as the pinned comment right at the top of the comment section. The pivot is, unsurprisingly, a T8. These screws, surprisingly, are also T8. That's nice. Pocket clip screw is, it looks like a T6. And it is. There must be part of this that is nested into the titanium because it's only one screw. It's certainly nested in there. Oh, no. No. Look what's happening here. There must be a second screw because, look, there's two holes. Let's just take it off. That's probably the easier way to do that. Let's take it off because it looks as though it's actually, that was hard to see, that lightning anode. There's so much detail going on there. It's hard to see the second screw that's milled out. I think there might be a hidden screw underneath here. No. Wait. Yes? Oh, there's a peg. Look how they did this. Okay. So it is reversible. Absolutely. It's just a peg. That's actually a nice little clever way of doing that. So, okay. Nice. Remette, use their brains and realize that the crossbar lock is an ambidextrous locking system. So having an ambidextrous pocket clip is a good idea. Oh, I didn't get that peg in there correctly. So when you do this, it's very important that you make sure that peg is actually mounted correctly into the frame because you don't want the pocket clip moving around on you. There we go. So nice. Okay. So that's great. T6 for the pocket clip screw, T8 for the body screws and the axis bar screw. If you're going to take this knife completely apart, which you probably won't have to do, but if you really want to, taking apart, I say axis crossbar lock knives are a little more complicated just because it involves holding this down while reassembling the pivot and then releasing it and having all the parts in place. And you guys know if you've done it before, it's a little bit tricky, but nowhere near impossible. As long as you have the right tools for the job, you should be good to go. And they gave you plenty of access without giving you a bunch of unnecessary screws in here to house the steel parts required for the crossbar lock. So that's cool. We already did weight. Let's do the blade stock thickness. 135, that'd be my guess. Hey, look at that. I almost never get that right. 135 thousandths, middle of the road. All right. Moving on with the review. This is obviously a polarizing aesthetic. It's very flashy, very shiny. If you don't like flashy, shiny knives, you probably won't like this. Remette, it's probably a good idea if you create this knife with options that don't involve all of the excess colors. Personally, I think that's cool sometimes. It just depends on the design. But there are definitely people out there who just don't like it, right? They'll throw the gas station label at it. In reality, anymore, all that means is that's an aesthetic that I don't like, and I don't have any other way of describing it. So give people some options for plain titanium, black titanium, and then you can avoid that mindless nonsense. I'm really coming down harder. It's just, guys, over the last 10 years, gas station knife, that description went from something very specific to a definition that is just widely used by everybody and everybody to describe something that they just don't like the look of. It has no meaning anymore, right? It's just like nerd. Like, that has no meaning. Everybody technically likes the stuff associated with the term nerd from a decade or 2 decades ago, but everything has changed now, right? Anyway, sorry. It's the Metal Complex YouTube channel. I have to rant about stuff like that. If you like the shiny aesthetic, you like the colors and things, then yeah, for sure. That aside, let's talk about the design of the knife. It's actually very comfortable. And the pocket clip being not past the 50% line and milled and flat and rounded off means that it's just not a bother. It's also smooth because it's, been polished. So the standard grip is all right. The choked up grip is excellent. This area is a true forward choil, meaning you can actually get your index finger in there. I wear an XL glove. I don't have the biggest hands in the world, but if your hands are similar to mine, this is a roomy choil. You can get your finger in there without worrying that you're going to run it up on the blade. I don't know why they did not add jimping here. That would have been a good idea, but that's fine that there's not any here. I kind of like that the entire spine of the blade is crowned. I think that looks good. The edges of the titanium could have probably been knocked down a little bit more, but it's fine. I wouldn't call it sharp. This is a comfortable knife, and you can absolutely use it to choke up and do whatever you need to do. The other nice thing about the choil is it makes it to where the start of the cutting edge clears the thumb stud, so you can cut straight down if you need to. Power cut into that thick cardboard or whatever it is you're using it for. That's great. I think these Omega springs are probably what I would call high tension. It's definitely not quite as loosey-goosey as some stuff out there. I would say medium high tension. Feels good though, feels snappy. The blade, it's definitely a blade shape we've seen before, but it's kind of cool. The fuller just kind of comes out into this open area. A little bit of a swedge out here, comes down to a nice clean bevel, reasonably thin cutting geometry considering, it's 135 thousandths and has to taper down, or the way, I guess how they've chosen to taper down is decent. Slicing a piece of paper, it feels very similar to like every other EDC style knife out there. It's fine. It's not an absolute laser beam, but I wouldn't call it thick. It'll do the job. And it'll be very easy to sharpen or touch up because of the general curvature of the blade. What I appreciate is that they didn't put anything on the blade, right? You're left to enjoy or not enjoy the rest of the aesthetic here. I think that's cool. One of the biggest, personality features of this knife is how they've decided to texture this area in here. Now, this isn't going to be for everybody, but man, does it add some extra zazz, some extra sauce to the aesthetic here. It's almost like metallic snowflake texturing, we have a lightning anode behind it, right? And that looks good. It's polished, and then you have all these little areas that they've milled with these lines going in a bunch of different directions. It just looks good. I can't help but wonder how it would look just the whole knife like that. And I think the one that's all lightning anode is actually that way. I think that would be really cool. But this is textured enough where you can feel it. It's nice, and it kind of, up until when I started this review, I literally didn't know that hole was there. So it did a good job of hiding that hole. This is an interesting design choice to put gold in here, but okay, right? I love that the backspacer's polished. A lot of times backspacers are just so blah, they don't do anything, right? Like the colors or don't like the colors. I think what I can appreciate here is the fact that there's contrast and it just adds to the aesthetic. So that's cool. It is admittedly a bit of a mess, right? I can't really say that anything feels on theme, right? It's just kind of a bunch of different flashy elements being combined into one knife, and it's all right. It's not offensive, but it doesn't look like it purposefully flows. But fortunately, none of the aesthetic things affect the functionality of the knife, right? You could remove all of the polishes, all the anode, and you would simply have titanium with some interesting texturing right here, and fine, right? Then it would just be all gray, and the knife would still function exactly the same. So it really is just going to come down to preference. We have a lanyard bar right here, which is fine. You have a pocket clip that, as I pointed out earlier, can be flipped over and mounted for left-handed carry. There is definitely a right and wrong way to carry your knives if you are right or left-handed. So it's nice that the pocket clip can be mounted for proper left-hand carry. And when I say proper, I mean safe. So if you want to actively choose to not carry your knife in the safest way possible. That's, of course, entirely up to you, assuming you purchase the knife. Or if you have the knife, I guess. Whatever. This metal complex guy sure is pretentious. Welcome to the channel. Good retention on the clip. Very easy in and out of the pocket thanks to a very smooth surface right here. We have stop pin located in its traditional position. Lots of shouldering. No blade play up, down, left, or right. No stick. Plenty of engagement, by the way. You can see right here. Oh, does it actually say? Yeah, it does. Tricky little area to put M390. That's nice. Lots of engagement there, so nothing to worry about. No pivot lash, very smooth and consistent in here. And, you know, what's acting as the detent is the axis bar, and it's fine. It feels very similar to other high-tension axis bars. And then we have perfect centering. This is a knife that some people are going to love visually and other people will not. The design is functional and good. I wish the thumb studs were different, right? If you like flashy knives and you like, you know, crossbar lock knives, you'll like this. I think the best thing about this is the fact that they are giving you M390 and, in my opinion, properly heat treating it and labeling it on their website. There are members of our community like Love Them Knives who but they test the Rockwell hardness of this stuff. In fact, you know, there's more than one person out there, so it is increasingly risky for companies to just lie about it. Remette has gained enough traction that I think they're well aware it's important that they're actually heat treating this stuff correctly, and I believe they've been documented already as, you know, getting their numbers up, and that the blade steel is actually what they say it is, right? And it's, you know, no longer a special thing. I mean, the truth is, M390 is no longer this special exotic steel. I mean, it became popular and pretty much every company in the world has access to it via Bowler, right? So it's not nearly as much in question. It used to be, you know, a decade ago when you would see a knife listed as M390 and it was an unfamiliar brand. Remette is still kind of an up-and-coming company, you know, on the scene here. But if it was an unfamiliar brand, a lot of times it wasn't M390. It was labeled M390 and it was just D2, right? Leading people to always question this stuff. Now in 2024, M390 is not really all that special. It's pretty easy for companies to get it. People are finding out it's not a horrifically expensive steel, or the price maybe has come down. And it's also not that tricky to just get the numbers into this general territory. This is what I always say. If the geometry is, you know, going to properly accentuate the composition, in this case, I don't know why there was upward inflection on the word composition. In this case, M390, 60 to 62 is where I like to see it. And that's where they are trying to hit it. So I think that's great. If you like the colors and everything, but you still want a functional ambidextrous knife with a good locking system, this knife comes in at $195, which I think is very fair. Under $200, yeah, they've definitely gone out of their way to add some cool features here. And I think that's super fair. If you don't like the shiny aesthetic, which is important with this model because that's your only option, all the different options have the shiny stuff, then you might not like this, right? Remette, it'd be a good idea to offer this and future models with, you know, some shiny elements and some that just have more subdued, like standard knife looks, so that people can enjoy the model without having to deal with the shiny stuff. Because understandably, some people don't like it, and that's perfectly fine, right? But generally speaking, I think this is a recommendable knife to people who are okay with this look, but it is definitely not going to be for everybody. So I'll let you guys make that choice for yourselves. That's going to be it for today's review. Like I said, this knife will be linked down in the description. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.